Good morning, and welcome back. I understand it's the second week of what promises to be a great academic year. I am Barbara Carolino Dubnik, and I'm a member of the class of 1995. I currently live in Boston, Massachusetts with my husband, Ben, and my little girls, Evelyn and Emily. And it's so great to be back. I mean, this is the first time that my little girls get to see this special place that had such a big impact on who I am today. And more importantly, I'm excited to introduce your first alumnus speaker of the school year, my talented little sister, Elle Carolino Drouin from the class of 2003. Elle and I have many fond memories of growing up at St. Mary's and in Memphis. Too many to list today, but I will say, when I was a senior, I was a student teacher for Elle's class and got to know many of her friends, many of whom are here today, and we were very close. It was quite hard, actually, when I left town and I went to college at Duke and then I moved to Honduras, and we didn't get to know the day-to-day details of each other's lives. So I was thrilled when it was Elle's time to pick where she was going to go to college, and she chose the George Washington University in the heart of Washington, D.C., where I was working at the time. We got to be roommates for part of the time when she was in college and right afterwards. So I got to witness some of her first important job decisions and some of her, I mean, to me, they were really fun, creative endeavors. I have always admired her drive and her willingness to try new things and her willingness to take risks. So after GW, Elle graduated with a dual concentration in international business and finance. She started her career as a financial advisor at UBS, which is a global financial services firm. She went on to work as the director of marketing and digital strategy for an e-commerce startup before launching her own business in 2016. She is currently based in New York City and is the founder of Wonderfell Media, a content marketing agency. So Elle provides digital marketing consulting and content creation services to women-owned brands. So for example, if one of you have a great business idea and need help deciding how to market the idea on the web, Instagram, Pinterest, Twitter, and who knows what other marketing channel by the time you graduate, she can help you. Elle is also the creative director and voice behind @Mochi in the City, a popular Instagram account featuring the adventures of Mochi, Elle's fashionable and very cute 4-year-old dog. So with over 100,000 engaged followers on the internet, my sister has collaborated with brands like American Express, Disney, Google, the Ritz-Carlton, and her work has been featured on The Today Show, CNBC, Bravo TV, and many other media outlets. On a personal note, Elle lives in Brooklyn, New York, which is close to Boston, thankfully, with her husband, Zach, who is here today, and they are both passionate about using Mochi's platform to raise awareness for organizations like the Humane Society and local animal shelters. So with that, please join me in welcoming Elle Carolino Drouin from the class of 2003.
Thank you, Barbara. Good morning. The first time that I stood up here, it was 1995, and I was in 4th grade. I remember being really excited because I got to come over to the big school for Little Sister Chapel because my sister was graduating. And I also remember being really nervous to stand up here in front of everyone, especially the seniors, because they seemed so much older and cooler than I am. I am much older now, but you are probably still cooler than I am. I came to chapel with a karaoke machine in tow, and I actually sang a song dedicated to my sister and the entire senior class. Apparently, I made a lot of people cry that day, and I'm not exactly sure if that was a good thing or a bad thing, but I will try not to make anyone cry today. The last time I stood up here was actually when I was a senior at St. Mary's. So when I was at St. Mary's, I was co-captain of the swim team, yearbook editor, I was in chamber ensemble, cum laude society, National Honor Society, Beta Club, M Club, lots of things that probably looked great on my resume, but I honestly had no idea what I wanted to do when I grew up. I can say, however, that with 100% certainty, no one, not my friends or my family or any of the faculty, would have expected me to come back to St. Mary's 15 years later to talk about how my dog is famous on Instagram. Because 15 years ago, Instagram didn't exist. So in college, I studied business because I honestly wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do, and it sounded like a practical degree to have. It turns out that it was. And even though that I didn't plan to start my own business, I don't think that I could have studied anything differently to better prepare me to where I am today. I started my career in finance because I had interned at Merrill Lynch during college, and I ended up getting a job at UBS before I graduated. I started as a lowly wealth management associate and worked my way up to the ultimate goal of being a financial advisor within a few years. I was surprised that at the time, I was only one of 3 female financial advisors in the entire Washington, D.C. office. It was a really big office. Being a St. Mary's girl, I always believed in being a leader, but in a male-dominated industry, most of the other women in the office were administrative or support staff, and that didn't seem right to me. After the market crashed, let's just say that working in finance was a pretty stressful environment. So I started a lifestyle blog as a creative outlet. Initially, I just wanted something fun to do in my free time, so I learned how to create a website. I used some of the skills that I learned as yearbook editor, and I taught myself more about graphic design and photography, and I started connecting on social media with other people who also had blogs and similar interests. Eventually, one of the people who read my blog reached out because they were launching an e-commerce business, and they wanted to get my advice on creating a blog and growing a following for their brand. I started consulting and doing some freelance work for the company, and a few months later, they offered me the opportunity to move to New York City and take on the role of Director of Marketing and Digital Strategy. I was ready to move on from my finance career, so I took on the role of Director of Digital Marketing, actually having limited experience in digital marketing, at least in the e-commerce space. I figured I had some experience in marketing from having to attract clients as a financial advisor and from growing my blog. And I had some experience in the e-commerce space because I shopped online a lot. I figured anything else that I didn't know I could figure out. So I spent a couple of years learning everything I could about digital marketing, social media, paid advertising, working with influencers, and along the way, I got a dog. But not just any dog, a really, really cute dog, who's not here today. So my dog Mochi now has over 100,000 followers on Instagram. She's been featured by Entrepreneur as one of the most entrepreneurial dogs in America. But since she can't take her own photos, she can't speak or write her own captions, and she can't engage with her own audience, I get to do a lot of the work. When I first started Mochi's account, I had no intentions of making her famous on the internet. I just thought it would be annoying to post a lot of pictures of my dog on my own Instagram account, so I started a separate account just for her. I quickly realized within a few weeks she had more followers than I did. And within a year, she had around 15,000 followers. Businesses had started to reach out, asking if they could pay us to promote their products, and other people started reaching out, asking if I could help them grow their own social media accounts. So I started a new blog, sharing digital marketing tips, and I got more serious about growing Mochi's Instagram following, doubling it from 15,000 to 30,000 in 2 months. And then I quit my job to start my own content marketing business. So working for myself means that every day looks a little bit different. I work with women-owned brands to create strategy and visual content for their social media, blogs, and e-commerce businesses. Some days I'm a stylist and photographer. Some days I'm blogging or doing podcast interviews. Some days I'm consulting or teaching online workshops. And some days I'm going on all expenses paid vacations to Aruba with my dog. Those are the best days. Ultimately, I love that every day I get to help women all over the world build businesses that are as pretty as they are profitable. So typically when I'm speaking these days, I am addressing other entrepreneurs or women who want to start their own businesses. And I get asked a lot about the lessons that I've learned since starting my business. I realize that most of the advice that I share with these women are the types of things that I wish I knew when I was sitting where you are today. I learned that you have to be willing to fail in order to succeed. Y'all, the idea of failing used to terrify me. My sister Barbara is one of the smartest people that I know. She was a straight-A student, and I wanted to be just like her. So I was motivated to get the best grades possible because Carolino girls didn't ever fail. Also, I didn't want to get grounded. I'm not saying the grades don't matter, because they do. But here's the thing. When you're in the real world, there's no such thing as getting straight A's as an adult. There's no standard way to measure whether or not you're doing a good job at adulting. But there's also really no such thing as failing. When I first started my business, I had no idea what I was doing. I'm sure my parents love hearing that. My business is completely self-funded, so when I first started, I had a lot of anxiety. I thought, what if this doesn't work out? What if no one hires me? What if I have to go back to get a real job? But I was willing to fail in order to take the chance that I would succeed. Owning a business has been the hardest thing that I have ever done, but it's also been the most rewarding. I've definitely stumbled a lot along the way, and I constantly have to push myself past my comfort zone to do things that scare me. But I would have quit a long time ago if it weren't worth it. So please don't let the fear of failure hold you back from success. I also learned that sometimes the path isn't obvious, but you can create it yourself. The last time I stood up here, social media didn't exist. Jobs in social media literally weren't a thing, and no one would have taken me seriously if I said, I'm going to take pictures of my dog, and I'm going to post them on this app, and people are going to pay me for that. I literally would have been crazy. But that is part of my life now. I created the Styled Stock Society, which is a styled stock photography membership for female entrepreneurs, because it was a resource that I wish existed when I first started my business. I wasn't a photographer when I started it. I just wanted to solve a problem, and I figured out how to do it. Over the past 2 years, the Styled Stock Society has grown to a community of over 1,300 women, and I went from barely knowing how to use a camera to shooting ads for brands like American Express and the Ritz-Carlton. One of the best things about being a St. Mary's girl is being in an environment that encourages you to be independent and create your own path. I'm so proud of the things that the other women in the class of 2003 have done. I know Lizzie has also started her own business, and Joelle has literally traveled around the entire world, but I don't think any of us knew exactly what we wanted to be doing 15 years ago. So if you're sitting here and you're not exactly sure what you want to do when you grow up, that's okay. Explore your interests, find hobbies that you enjoy. Never stop learning. and you'll figure it out along the way. I've also learned that if you want to grow a community, you have to embrace what makes you different, but also appreciate the similarities that connect you with other people. I get a lot of messages from people who have dogs that look a lot like my dog. And sometimes they just want to share photos with me, and sometimes they want to know what they can do to make their dog famous on Instagram. The short answer is, I actually teach a class on that. But the longer answer is, you have to remember behind every famous dog on Instagram is a person. And people connect with other people. Sometimes we connect with other people because we have something in common. Maybe we went to the same school, or we're from the same city, or we have similar interests. But sometimes we connect with people because they have a different point of view, or different life experiences that we can learn from. The point is, be yourself. Share your story. Connect with other people the way you want them to connect with you. Unless you're a dog trying to grow a following on Instagram, in which case you should basically pretend to be a human. I've also learned not to compare myself to strangers on the internet. Social media makes it really easy for us to compare ourselves to other people, and not just people we know, but celebrities, bloggers, Instagram famous dogs. Seeing other people's lives can sometimes make you feel like maybe yours isn't so great. But don't forget that what you're seeing is just a tiny piece of someone else's life. So when you see my dog on an all-expenses-paid vacation in Aruba, know that what you don't see is me getting up at 5 a.m. on said vacation to take pictures of her before the beach actually gets crowded. What you don't see is the thousands of bad photos that I've taken to get that one perfect shot. Remember that everyone has insecurities, no one is perfect, and what you see online isn't always a true reflection of real life. And seriously, don't compare yourself to strangers on the internet. Last but not least, I've learned that you can do everything, but you can't do everything alone. So I'm the type of person that really hates asking for help. I'm a bit of a control freak, and I had a really hard time letting go of certain things in my business when I started hiring other people. But it would literally be impossible to do everything myself. And honestly, I know that the other women I've hired can do their jobs better than I can. I'm guessing that many of y'all are probably also overachieving independent women who want to be able to do it all. And you can, but you can't do it alone. There are going to be times when you need a mentor, someone who is a few steps ahead of you, who you can go to for advice. Don't be afraid to ask for help. There are going to be times when things get hard, when you need the support of friends or family. There are a lot of people in this room who can give you that support. So cherish the relationships you make at St. Mary's and let other people lift you up. Finally, there may be a time in the future when you're in a position to be someone else's mentor, when you can be the support that someone else needs, or you can share your story so that other people can learn from it. Remember that we can do anything, but we can't do everything alone. Thank you.